Hey folks, got a bit of a soft skills episode lined up for you today. Today I've got Eric Siron on the show. We're going to be talking about IT career trajectories and just some general career advice, right? The job market hasn't been great, and we talk about gathering knowledge and learning new skills and becoming more valuable to our organizations. And when we look at the entire span of an IT career, people tend to go through in two different ways. Either they find one organization to get a job with and stay there for a long period of time to learn those knowledges, get that knowledge and learn skills, etc. Or you see a lot of people, they'll job hop throughout their career, often every 2 or 3 years. Now, typically that's to get better salary, right? Not the only reason, but probably the most common. Now, there is secret option C as well, which Eric and I talk about in the show, but we felt with the way that the job market has been lately that this is a conversation that would be helpful to a lot of people, and it's one that needs to happen. So that's what we've got lined up for today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Hey everyone, it's a new week. That means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by SysAdmins for SysAdmins and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks working out there in the trenches to keep the digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and I've got my regular co-host with me this week. I've got Eric Siron. How's it going, Eric?
I'm good. How you doing, Andy?
Doing good. You appear to be in a data center.
Yeah, I'm playing around with green screening, and no, I'm actually in a data center, and it's mine, and I built it by hand, and no, nobody can afford that anymore.
I was gonna say it's a pretty clean looking data center there.
Yeah.
I don't have any cable management critiques or anything like that. It looks pretty solid.
It's my data center from Canada. You never met her. You wouldn't know her.
Oh, gotcha.
We're going to test how many people catch that. I threw that at somebody the other day. Oh, it's my girlfriend from Canada. You don't know her. And they're like, what?
Oh, boy.
What are we teaching these children?
Right. Oh, we're off the rails. We're a minute in and we're off the rails. All right, back on the rails. Anyway, we have a good episode lined up today. It's more of a, I guess, soft skills-ish type episode. And there's always been this question. I think this is probably universal amongst most professions, but I feel like it's especially prevalent in the tech industry. And when it comes to jobs, tech jobs, and career advancement, it comes down to two choices. One, do I stay where I'm at, or do I job hop? Right? And that's kind of the question that we are answering in today's episode. And Eric and I, we both have decades and decades of experience between the two of us here that we can share some stories and whatnot, and kind of put our 2 cents in here as to how you should kind of be navigating these questions in your IT career journey. So, but with that, we have some of our regular recurring segments to get to. I always will start with some housekeeping stuff. So again, if you're new to the show, welcome. Really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I always like to give a reminder to folks about where you can find the show. Again, you can find all of the various links associated with the show at www.sysadminweekly.com. We also have some GitHub discussion boards. That's kind of where our community hangout is, where we post announcements. I actually just posted a new thread out on the GitHub discussion board asking for people to share their family and friend IT support stories. Now, they could be, horror stories, they could be funny stories, they could be success stories, whatever, right? But Eric, I think it was 2 episodes ago, it was the one with you, Paul, and I, we talked about doing an episode around family and friend IT support. And so I'd love to share a bunch of the community stories in this particular episode too. So if you have a great family and friend IT support story, by all means, check out this the SysAdmin Weekly GitHub discussion boards and share your story there. I've got the discussion pinned, but I'll put it in the show notes as well too. So, and again, if you want to contact us in some other way besides that particular post, you can always drop a comment on the YouTube videos. You can drop a comment on the Spotify episodes, or if you want to end up in our inboxes, you can email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com as well. And with that, ready to get to our news react segment here. This is the segment of the show where my co-host and I, we talk about a news item that caught our eye in the last couple of weeks. And Eric, I'm gonna let you take the first stab at this. What do you got for us this week?
Well, the CEO of Nvidia put out something. He said, like, if I have an engineer who's not spending, I think like $500,000 a year on AI tokens, I wonder, like, something, basically question if the guy is skilled enough or whatever. Like, this is his new metric for, are you a good engineer or bad engineer, is how much have you stolen from other people and how much did you make the computer do it for you? And I'm like, of course, it really comes down to the, Nvidia makes all this money off all this AI stuff. So he's really saying, because then he turned it out to like, yeah, your engineers should be spending 50% of their compensation, the equivalent of 50% of their compensation on AI tokens, and that's the metric you should hold them to. And I'm like, well, it's because, of course, when somebody somewhere on Earth uses AI, it winds up back in Nvidia's pockets one way or another. That's really what he was after. But now they're putting it down like this is the metric by which you should start to judge people, is how much AI they use, and are they using enough? And I'm just sitting there like, oh yeah, like we never would have gotten to the moon without AI, and we never would have built all these. The Golden Gate Bridge is only there because the engineers used AI, and it would have fallen into the ocean a long time. This is so absurd. This is just, like,
There's
uh,
a lot of chest thumping and noise making happening in the AI space for sure.
yeah, and I know a lot of times, like, it seems every time I'm on the show, I bring up all these guys and their big proclamations around AI, and I look up their resumes to see what they know about what they're talking about. And I didn't look his up, but I'm curious, does he actually know how to engineer anything, or is he another guy who went from school to MBA to leading a company and actually doesn't know the first thing about how to do anything? Because an engineer that dependent on I have questions in the other direction. Like, okay, what do you
And
really?
and I mean, if that's an actual tangible KPI that they're using in house for some reason, I'm sure I can ask AI to make a script that uses a whole bunch of tokens consistently and on the
Yeah,
regular
you just
for
want me to set tokens on fire to prove something to you? I can do that. I mean, it's just absurd to me.
leave it to my cybersecurity brain, to think, oh,
Oh, well, yeah, and of course,
how
what's an
could this be
engineer gonna do? Oh,
abused?
if this is what I'm graded on, then I'm gonna spend hours making sure I pass that test. And, like, okay, but is that your primary your job description now, is to burn AI tokens? Is that, like, it's
Oh boy. Well, we'll put a link to that news story in the comments. You folks can check that out. I'd be curious what you guys think about that as well too. That's an interesting one. That's like a I don't know. I'm kind of thinking like he's kind of lost the plot on this one, but that's my professional opinion.
yeah, and probably I should have actually listened to, like, the entire thing, but I just can't see that recast in a different light where suddenly I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense." Like, no, and no, it really doesn't. Sorry.
Ah,
Not
well,
sorry, not sorry. Kids still say that one.
well, appreciate you sharing that one with us, Eric. So, my news story is similar. It's not similar. It's adjacent. Let's put it that way. So we have been talking about this quite frequently on the show, and I wrote an edition of the newsletter about this too, about the consolidation of compute resources into the hands of a few, right? And the industry is also feeling the weight issues in the RAM market, right? RAM is very scarce. There's scarcity in storage now as well too, and this just in, Intel is talking about raising their prices by 10%. So now we'll start getting squeezed on the consumer processor side of things too. And the article specifically called out consumer CPUs specifically. So
So they
I
can't
thought
even
that was
blame it on
interesting,
they can't even blame it on the AI data centers. It's just,
right? Nope,
I
we're
mean, it's
gonna
fine.
raise
I've only bought AMD chips with my own money for a long time, so
same.
fine.
Yep.
Go ahead, and if I switch, it'll be to ARM. It won't be to Intel anyway. So do whatever you want, Intel. I don't really care, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. So I'm waiting for the NIC vendors to start squeezing us as well too. Then we'd have all 4 core components of a system covered, right?
Well, it
Storage.
used to be the NIC vendors because I was there when a 3Com card, 10 gig card cost $65. Okay, and
Yep.
then Netgear came along and sold you something that was about 80% as good for $11. So I bought 6 of them and installed one and put the other 5 in the closet. And like, all right, when that one pops, I've got 5 replacements. All 5 rotted of old age because it was just fine. I could do that. So they learned, and competition did what it was supposed to. Well, hmm, now how many neck benders are we down to again?
Not that many actually,
I
right? You
don't
could
know.
probably.
3Com's not in the space anymore. Who else isn't?
Oh man, you just know there's a 3Com hub still running in a closet somewhere. There's one still out there somewhere, I bet.
Oh, you know it. You know there is.
Those things, like, I mean, you could use them as boat anchors and they'd still work afterwards, So those things just never died.
No,
Anyway.
no.
All right. Well, moving on to our next recurring segment here, our Nerd Hour segment. This is the segment of the show that does not take an hour, but it's where we talk about the geeky, nerdy things that we do here in our spare time or our professional time. And I've got a quick one this week. So I have been busy with a number of other things lately, and I've been troubleshooting an issue with one of my um, K3S nodes, my Kubernetes Lite nodes inside of my lab. It's just a physical machine. I've got Debian Linux running on the machine, and I've got Kubernetes running on top of the OS. And this is an old machine that I kind of Frankenstein together from a bunch of old parts I had lying around the house. Um, I mean, all the components work. The OS runs, and it runs fine for 2 or 3 days, and then it goes belly up. And it goes belly up in a way that the kernel is so hard locked that it is unable to write anything to the syslog. So I've been troubleshooting that here and there, replacing a component here, testing this, reseating memory. I haven't quite nailed it down yet, but and the other lovely thing is console window completely black when it does it. Absolutely nothing. So that's what I've been working on lately. And of course, anyone who's troubleshot that type of issue knows those issues you can't recreate on the fly. It's okay, I'm going to try one thing and wait to see if it happens again. I'm going to try another thing and wait to see if it happens again. And yep. So anyway, my cluster is like N+3, so I'm fine, right? But I digress. That's what I've been working on lately. How about you, Eric?
So mine is boring. I've been working on converting the Project Runspace site to a static generator, and I know you and I talked about it. So at first I'd gotten down the rabbit hole of Jekyll, and now I'm looking at Hugo and
Oh, yeah.
learning that. So yeah, nothing has changed. Nothing is visible or anything like that. I'm just tinkering and learning how it works, and yeah.
I have been very happy with Hugo for a long time now. So sysadminweekly.com runs on Hugo. Well, I shouldn't say runs on Hugo. The site is generated with Hugo because, again, it's a static site generator, right? You provide the repository, you run the static site generator, and it builds it based off of that repository. So I use Hugo for sysadminweekly.com as well as andyontech.com as well, too. And I remember I looked at Jekyll, but this was like 2, 3 years ago, and my memory is not that great, and I don't remember why I chose Hugo over Jekyll, but I remember looking at both of them. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go
I
see
did
if I
some
can dig up any.
comparisons, and I went with Hugo because, like, if I have a problem with Hugo, I can ask you. So
Yep. And I should be able to help in most cases. But I see a lot more chatter on the net about Hugo as well too. That way, if you need to go ping the community for something, it seems to be more people using it. Again, I don't have any empirical evidence to back that up, but that's
It
the
might be because
perception.
Jekyll's so easy they don't have to talk about it. You just don't know.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
could
know,
very well
but
be the case.
I usually don't ask very much of things, so I'll just, I kinda go with the flow on things, so
I keep meaning to do a blog post about how those sites are hosted because it's amazingly simple once it's all set up. Because in order to post something to like andyontech.com, literally all I have to do is do a commit to the repo, and then GitHub Actions automatically sees that, oh hey, there's a new commit. Let me rebuild the site, and it pushes it to the host, and it I don't have to do anything other than just, git push, right? That's literally all I have to do. I don't have to log into a portal. I don't, yeah, I could go on for a while about this because I love that. I love that setup so much. I fought with WordPress for years and years and years and years. I don't ever want to touch WordPress ever again.
that's actually what burned it for me is I went in to start a article and I had, like, one sentence written and all their JavaScript nonsense just brought my computer to a halt, just stopped, and, like, I'm not doing this anymore, and I actually think
Yep.
it might be I have a plugin for grammar and, different checking, and I think it's gotten heavier over the years. I think they've thrown some AI into it, and it finds every single text box open anywhere in the computer and tries to help me, and it may have been that, it may not have been WordPress, but I'm like, "You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna blame WordPress because right now it's the only thing misbehaving, so goodbye." And, I mean, can
Yeah.
you really go wrong if blame WordPress? People will be like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense," so
Pretty much. And I don't want to get on it too hard because it is used popularly all over the world. But
yeah,
I have never been comfortable running it unless I have something like word fence sitting in front of it, right? Something to harden it against attack.
yeah.
Because you go look at the high severity CVEs for WordPress over the years, and there's been some doozies.
Well, I'm getting away from it, and I'm also in a place where, with this RAM stuff, and maybe we ought to have some more about that, but what I'm hoping is that pushes developers back into the mindset that RAM isn't free, and the
Right?
community I think that has forgotten that the hardest is the web community because, oh my
Oh,
god,
for
our web
sure.
page is getting so heavy looking at this, like, I closed one tab and Chrome was like, "You just saved 2 gigs of RAM." How? Why? What are you doing?
Pretty
So
much.
the more I can get back into, "No, let's not do that," the better. That
Yeah.
oh, anyway, continue, please.
Agreed. Agreed. So, well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, Eric. And I think it's time to get to our regular segment, our main segment of today's episode. And again, we are talking about um, career trajectory. And what do you do when you are job hunting? Do you try to job hop on the regular, or do you try to find that one great company that you really love to be at and sit there and stay there for your career, right? Those are kind of the two options. I mean, the traditional advice, right, is to pick a company, grow there, climb the ladder, and retire with a gold watch or I don't know why. It seems to always be some sort of timepiece after you've been there for 20 years. Gee, thanks for all the years you gave us. Here's something that represents all the time you buried in our organization.
And if it's not, it's probably made out of crystal, which is what we use for electronic timekeeping. So one way or another.
I've never thought too hard about that, but that's it. There's something there. It's interesting. Anyway, but then the other option, right, is I guess what I would call modern wisdom. And that is every 2 to 3 years you hop somewhere else. Why? Because, and again, this is probably true for other industries, but in the tech space especially, in order to get meaningful pay raises, you have to jump somewhere every 2 or 3 years. Otherwise, you fall into the whole, well, HR and leadership have authorized a 2% raise for everyone this year, even though inflation is way more than that, right? That's a whole
Mhm.
different conversation. Uh, but you go job hop somewhere else, and most people end up getting like a 15, 20, 30% raise depending on where they end up, right? And so, which I personally has always kind of perplexed me because, I, and I'm a big believer in institutional knowledge, right? People don't realize how much they learn and understand and how valuable that knowledge about working within the organization they are in, how valuable all of that knowledge is, this problem is solved by Susie over in the HR department, right? Or yeah, we use this vendor for print and imaging. I'm just again, very simple examples there, but all of that deep knowledge, how processes work, how things are set up, how what kind of legacy stuff is there. I could go on and on and on about examples of institutional knowledge. I feel like it is wildly undervalued by business leaders. And they just think that, okay, if someone, if anybody leaves, we can just replace them. That institutional knowledge is in some cases irreplaceable for certain positions, in my opinion, but that's just me. I feel like you and I maybe have talked about this over a beer or a coffee at some point,
Mm.
Eric.
There's a so as with everything, there should be a balance in that
Right?
no one is irreplaceable. They will find someone who can do your job. I have left places and been replaced by 3. It took 3 people to replace me, but they did replace me. So, no one is irreplaceable, and you gotta, as, us on the employee side, we have to remember that. Don't walk in with this attitude, "They can't afford to fire me," because that usually leads them into a goal to fire you and figure out how to live without you. So don't do
Yep.
that. But then all there is on the other side, and, I've only worked for a very small number of people who believe that, and they never hung around very long, which so that was great. But there were a few people who believe that, yeah, your title is systems administrator. I can go down to the systems administrator store, get another one look just like you, and drop them into your seat, and everything's going to be fine. That is also not true. But a lot of these folks, again, and this is where you've heard me harping on news react segments over and over and over and over, is they don't have any idea because they've never done your job. They've never done anything
Yep.
like your job. They skipped all that. And I want to be careful, everything in balance. I don't want to have nostalgia for a time that didn't exist. That said, once upon a time, it was the norm for companies to be run by people who had worked at that company for a
Yeah.
while and worked up. I don't mean they just were like in the building. They like came up from something. Did they come from the absolute trenches in the bottom? A lot of times, no, but they at least were adjacent to the work. They saw the work. They knew they had ideas. And then there came this, well, new blood would be good. Not gonna argue with that. A lot of these companies who are run internally and we only promote from within, or whether a lot of those wind up crashing and burning too because they can't adapt quickly enough. So again, it's this teetotal one way or the other nonsense that I think has always gotten us into trouble. And these anyway, a lot of places now are run by folks who literally cannot understand that your employees are not mix and match. We aren't color swatches and Tuesday's outfit versus Wednesday's outfit. That's not how that works, and they don't get that. So
It's unfortunate, really, because I I've been in this industry for, if I do I always give general ballpark figures, but if I actually do the math here, I've been in this industry for 24 years now, 24 years. And I have seen it happen multiple times where leadership has this mentality of, like you just said, well, nobody's irreplaceable. Well, somebody leaves, and yes, things end up being okay, but there is considerable pain and angst and
Mhm,
issues for 6 months. 6 months. The
mhm.
one case I'm thinking of, this is probably midway through my career. Um, yeah, we had a couple of key people leave, and I tell you what, there we were struggle bussing it for a while
Ah,
because There were knowledge gaps. I think there were also some certification gaps after that as well too. And if you're
Mm,
familiar with many vendor partnership systems, a lot of times in order to be a gold partner, you have to have X number of people with a certification. Well, now we're scrambling to get a couple people that certification that you can't just
yep.
get overnight. And there's a lot of different examples there. But and speaking about the institutional knowledge piece here, I think we kind of organically started talking about the side of the equation, the case for staying within an organization, right? So let's define. We're talking about the choice where, okay, hey, I'm in an IT career. I'm going to find an organization and stay there, and I'm going to grow my career there. And we've been talking about some of the cons, and I have a few more I want to mention here, but I want to make sure we mention the positives as well too, because I do see a couple of positives with choosing one org and staying there. And the one I'm thinking of especially is one that I have thought of time and time again over my career, and I've always been um, either a contractor on an enterprise IT team, or I spent the vast majority of my career, like 90% of my career, working for uh, either working for MSPs, managed service providers, if you're not familiar with that term, um, working for vendors that cater to MSPs, right? And when you work for an MSP, you don't have any one customer, any one network that is your own thing, right? I think when I was in the trenches still, I don't know, I probably serviced 20, 25 different customers, right? And there were a number of us engineers with hands on those environments and um, a lot of people making decisions, et cetera, et cetera. When I think about making the case for staying at one organization, I think of, private business. Um, I think of like a standalone IT department, right? A business that has their own IT department. One thing that I feel like I've kind of missed in my career sometimes is I have never been a sysadmin where this is my environment. This is my environment. This is my network, my servers, my storage, where I was the guy and then the network, the infrastructure was my baby, right? And I often think about like, okay, if I was in that situation again, I would really love taking a network and getting it up to my standards, right? That would be very enjoyable for me. And I think that's one of the pros for staying is because if you're with an organization long enough, you can really put your mark on that environment, right? I think that's what I'm getting at. So I don't know um, if I have anything else to add on that particular point, but for me, that's always been the big draw for staying in one location, right? Making it as good as possible. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Eric.
Yeah, I had one of those jobs where it was all mine. I didn't create it, but through
And
this
few people
really
rarely do.
unbelievable. True. Yeah. If you weren't there on the day the company was opened, probably not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, there was just I started as basically, I want to say, help desk isn't quite the word, but help desk effectively. And within like 2 weeks, I was running the whole thing, and it was wild turn of events that made all that happen. Um, but yeah, it was all mine, and within about 6 months, I'm like, yeah, this is where I want to retire, and uh, lot went into that, and it was more than just the ownership of everything, though. But yeah, I'm not there anymore, sadly, but
I was gonna say you didn't retire there that I'm aware of.
I did not. The and I think we'll probably touch along things like this as we get through this. Yeah, I it was from my perspective, it was a dream job. They good people. I frequently so the it was a family owned business, and I really enjoyed the family. They were good to their employees. From my perspective, talk to different people. You always get different stories. My perspective, those they were good to their employees. And the one family member I worked for, I always describe him as the general that troops willingly fell on their swords for.
Oh
He
yeah.
was a
Yep.
good, effective leader. You know what I mean? And really sharp, really savvy, kept the business going without compromising like morality, anything, and just a good place to be. But then they got bought, so there you go. And I chose not to stay with the new owners. So
And that's another one of the downsides of staying, right? Because I mean, uh, you know, you might get the place exactly how you want it, and it gets sold like that, right? And there's some other downsides that I want to make sure I mention here. The big one for me is when I look at it from a skills perspective. Your skills can really calcify in by staying in the same environment for too long, right? You have I don't know, you have an EMC SAN and Windows servers and a WatchGuard firewall and Cisco switches. Your skill set tends to build up around what you have and what you're managing, right? And if you're around that only those things for 10, 15 years, well, those are the only things that you're going to know. Um, I will say the one thing I'm very lucky to have had with all of my MSP experience in my career is um, it was really hard work. Don't get me wrong. It is not easy working in MSPs, but the amount of different environments, different technologies, different vendors, the breadth of technology that I was touching and servicing on a regular basis was astronomical. I learned so much in the 10 years I was in the trenches as an MSP, right? And I mean, there would be times where I literally would go to work and I had no idea what I would be doing that particular day. Yeah, I I don't know if I've ever mentioned this particular story to you, Eric. We were traditionally a VMware shop. So the sales team would usually sell you know, we even had a name for this bundle, an engineering name, because the company sold it so often. I can't say it because it would give the company away, but it was two hosts and an EMC SAN, right? Two vSphere hosts and an EMC SAN. Well, one of the few times they actually sold a Hyper-V cluster because the customer wanted it, of course, Andy was the Hyper-V guy at the MSP. And so I get out to the site and yeah, Dell servers. Yep, I'm familiar with these. Very good. Okay, an EqualLogic SAN. Yep, I know EqualLogic. All good there. And I start digging around and looking at the switches, and Dell Force 10 switches. What the hell are these
wow.
things? You know? What the hell are these things? Well, this business that wanted us to do this project, they were a Dell shop, 100% Dell shop.
Apparently, top to bottom.
Oh man, I had never touched Force 10 switches before, but they had some Cisco-ish type qualities, so I wasn't completely in the dark, but I'll tell you what, I stumbled around getting some VLANs defined for a little while, but I
Mhm.
got there in the end, right? Um, Anyway, that's just an example, right? When you stay in one organization for any period of time, you got to make sure that your skills are not calcifying. Now, if you go stay at an MSP for a long period of time, I guess you kind of have that risk, but you kind of don't because the client base is always changing. But again, you have all the other considerations we've talked about in staying in one organization for a long period of time. Uh, Personally, I've talked to a lot of MSPs over the years. I don't know many MSPs that retain engineers for longer than a few years. Most engineers I've talked with burn out after a couple of years because MSP IT work it can be grueling, man. It can be very, very difficult. Anyway,
Yes.
um, anything else you want to mention before we move on to the case for job hopping? I think we already talked
No.
about stagnant salaries. We talked about internal raises. I'm just looking through my list here. I think we've covered everything. Yeah. So I guess let's move over to making the case for job hopping on the regular as a sysadmin, right? And again, the main benefit here, right, is salary compensation. I mean, it's when you bust your ass and work hard and hard and hard, right, and end up getting the 2-3% raise at the end of the year, or sometimes not, depending on the organization. I've seen a lot of people that is often a what I call an RGE. I think I've mentioned this on the show before. Usually it's because somebody broke something, but this is a resume generating event, right? And so people end up going out and they'll job hop because they want the increased salary that job hopping will get them, which again is typically 15, 20, 30%, sometimes higher depending on the position. And that's one of the driving forces. Or, from a culture standpoint, the incumbent organization tends to not be a great place to, and well, let me rephrase that. Another reason people job hop is because they don't like the culture where they are. It's a much better way of me explaining that. So I see that as a reason for job hopping as well too. But uh, very, very cognizant of the downside. And I think this is, I've known people who have had this conversation with hiring managers because back in my MSP days, I was involved in hiring discussions. I was one of the people that did like the technical interviews and things like that. And if somebody job hopped too much, they were a flight risk, right? They were deemed like, oh, they're going to be here for 6 months. Why do we train this person? Yeah, let's choose somebody else. So it's a fine line, right? And I'm not sure I have an exact formula. Don't job hop more than X because it's subjective, right? But on the surface, kind of diving into this particular area, those are some of the pros and cons that I see, Eric. I don't know if I'm missing any so far.
That's really what it is. You can't get it's hard to convince an employer that you're worth investing in if you're gonna be gone in 18 months. So and a
Yeah.
lot of this job hopping has led to the contract economy that we have today, where so many
Oh,
jobs are
yes.
contractor based anyway, because they're like, well, if we can't keep employees anyway because they're just trying to find that next paycheck, then why don't we just switch to that model and we'll just have 6 to 12-month contracts, and sort of a project-based thing, and then we'll just have a few people who will stick around to keep the lights on in the interim, and so a lot of the companies have adapted to that job hopping mentality anyway. So, if you're going into a place and they're like, "No, we really wanna hire somebody full-time long term," then, yeah, they could be you get in there and you find out, well, the reason the last guy didn't make it is because the culture here is terrible or you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I I've only met a few people in my life that I felt like they were just like, "That's what I do. I just job hop. Hop, 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 hop. That's just what I do." I don't know that I've met a lot of people that that's really their driving mode of operation. I think,
Yeah.
everybody's, looking for some kinda stability or something, and it's usually the younger folks who are like, "No, I'm good with this contract to contract kind of a thing." So, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I can't really think. I can think of one person who prefers the contract route, right? The 12-month contract. He's done a lot of jobs where the contract was extended for another 6 to 12 months, but
Mm.
I don't know. He enjoys that. You know. Personally, I wouldn't like the uncertainty. He seems to thrive off of it, right? Now that said,
That's my problem too, the uncertainty, and you
yeah,
know what? I don't know if this is the same thing, but I had an MCT, actually the Microsoft certified trainer. The Microsoft certified trainer who coached me to the point where I became a Microsoft certified trainer, he loved that too. He didn't have a job. He went wherever they needed him, and he did a training session, and this is all contract based, so, like, I'm gonna come
yep,
in, you're gonna have 12 students, and I'm gonna be there for, 2 weeks, teach this curriculum, and then I'm gone, and this is how much I'm gonna charge, and, uh, he had like, it worked out with one of his regulars, we say, put him basically as a W-2 employee so they could give him insurance. So he had that, but then he didn't actually work there per se. It was just the insurance, and he loved it. He's like, I'm always on the go, and I'm like, you have a wife and a kid at home. How do you? But you know what? Family dynamics are what they are. I'm
They
staying out of
are.
it,
It's true.
you know.
Yep.
But he loved being on the road, and he was home 2, 3 weeks a year. I'm like,
Wow.
all right,
Wow. That's some people are just wired for that. I'm not, but some people are
I'm
just
not
wired for
either.
that.
And of course, now again, he was a trainer, so he was a nerd like us, but he wasn't doing MSP. He wasn't doing.
Right.
He wasn't a fix-it man. He could fix stuff, but he'd be real quick to go, yeah, that's a little bit more into the weeds than I can get. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I the my buddy I'm thinking of, he's single, no kids, so I like the contractor lifestyle worked very well for him and
hmm
seems to do yeah, does pretty well for himself. Um
yeah, I mean, I think it's not that, and maybe that's something that, because I don't think you've never done the contract life, have you?
I did for 2 or 3 years in my early career and
Okay,
ultimately what got me out of it was, if you recall, in 2007, the automotive industry in the United States was not doing well, right?
right.
Was not
Yep.
doing well. And I was a 40-hour a week contractor at a tier 2 automotive supplier.
Mm.
So automotive industry starts tanking. Andy's a
hmm
fresh sysadmin on a month-to-month contract, and I'm just a line item at the bottom of an Excel file somewhere. And I was
Yeah,
kindly asked to vacate the premises one day. Which
I'm
it all
sorry.
worked out because that's how I ended up in the MSP space. And well, the rest of my career, as they say, is, the rest is history, right?
I've never. I did. I took one, and I was in that place of, well, I kind of need a job, so I'm not going to be overly picky. But so I did take a contract, but it was understood from the beginning it was contract to hire. So I've never ever been the guy who's like, I'm just going to take a contract and then hope another one picks up
Nope.
quickly enough. And mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm.
Nope.
No, of course, I was running a risk too that I wouldn't, that contract wouldn't go to hire, and I knew that. But the beginning was like, no, if you know that this contract is going to end, I don't want one of those. And the recruiters, I was like, "Are you sure you have the ability?" And then I'm like, no, no, I don't want that. So
See, you and I are just wired for more stability than, some people are. And again, the thing that we're talking about today, right? Do you stay at one organization for a long period of time or do you job hop? I think it comes down to uh, y- whether you're risk averse or not as well too. It comes down to yourself as
mhm.
well too because um yeah, like I
And I want
said,
to acknowledge the way the world has changed, just even
yeah.
the last couple of years, especially the last year with so many IT folks. Like, our industry has been just gutted.
Oh yeah.
So many people
It's
pushed
like
out.
200, 300,000 somewhere in that area
It's
now.
yeah, and it's just insane. And we're gonna have to adapt as employees,
Yeah.
and I don't know where it's gonna go. And of course, I don't know the worldwide situation either. In the United States, of course, they're all blaming AI and they're all lying. It's not what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about saving dollars, and I don't know. See how because the pendulum is right now at a very extreme end, and it's going to have to start coming back at some point. I know there have been stories of people that were let go because of AI and then quietly hired back at a lower rate. I know there's a lot of that. So,
Yeah.
um, but it's not. It can't last. I mean, already, like, even God, who was it? Somebody was in the news, one of the big retailers like Walmart. I think it was Walmart. There's one of them was like, we can't do this, and it's not sustainable anymore because we've run out of, people are now, because Walmart is basically there for lower income shoppers, and they're like, but the
Right.
lower income shoppers have gotten so low income that they can't sustain our business model anymore. And like, yeah, this whole thing of all these companies are like, well, we'll just do everything as cheap and fire as many people as we can, and, like, eventually, there's nobody else to pawn these human beings off on who still
Yep.
need the goods and services, and you're charging money from people who don't have any, and nobody wants to pay their employees, and they're all upset because nobody has any money to buy their products. It's like you've all created this. It's a circular firing squad, and you've all participated in
Yup.
creating it. And I don't, so that market is what so many of our sysadmins are now going into. It's not the same, obviously, for a very very low income worker, but I don't know. I mean, I was there in the '90s when somebody who had the Microsoft certification on Windows NT could make, $60,000, which was a lot of money. And then all of a sudden they uncovered that, well, a lot of people are cheating to get those MCSEs, and it kind of upended it. And so almost it seemed like overnight those jobs went from 60,000 to 30,000, which was still a good wage in the '90s, but it changed, and then it seems like it just never really entirely recovered, and the whole thing is just weird.
It is.
And I'm trying not to get too far off, or I'll go on a history walk through the '90s, 2000, so on and so forth. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to hear it from me, but
Well,
we're at a different one of those turning points where all of a
yeah,
sudden they're looking at us like we're commodities, we're easily changeable, we're all cheating, we're all lying. IT has for way too long, like, well, IT doesn't directly generate revenue, therefore it's a bad thing. You know, Even if you work at a software company, that generates and should know better, like, well, support is just this black hole of money. We just pour money in it, nothing, we don't get any revenue out of it. And it's like, it's such a short-sighted opinion of how things work.
it
And
really is.
and it's funny how those same people will come into those meetings and synergy, 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 and they'll throw the word synergy around and then go, but IT is this sinkhole of money. Okay, cool. I mean, you
Oh,
can you can only do your job because I'm so good at mine. But yes, tell me again how I don't generate any revenue, and how I'm such a bad person. But again, the like I said, the pendulum is way at one extreme right now, and it's going to have to start coming back.
it will.
So,
It
and we'll
will.
have something else. Things will change, and I do want to keep this on topic, but mainly where I'm trying to go with all this is, you may not currently have a great option if you're like me and you just want long term stability and a good job that you can have and that you can retire at. Like
Right.
now, I'm pretty sure nobody, nothing is for certain. Like my father graduated high school, went to work for a company, and he retired from that company, and he went from working on the um, assembly line all the way up to assistant manager, decided to be a plant manager. He, second in charge, decided he didn't like that. That wasn't the kind of thing he wanted to do, and got himself demoted into IT manager. So he was running IT at that facility, and that's what he wanted, and he retired from there. So that's what I thought I had to do, was that sort of thing. And as I'm out there and it's like, no, I don't like this company, I don't like this one, and I'm job hopping. And he never had anything bad to say to me, but I could always tell he's like, he just didn't really understand. Like, why don't you just do a bunch of research, find the company you want, and because I don't know until I get in there what I want, and
Right.
you know, and so on and so
Which
forth. So all that's everything has changed, and it changes all the time. Nothing is, you can look at my career path and it worked for me, but it may not work for the next person. So
and that is a fantastic segue into our next area here, because we've talked about kind of this dual choice, right? Either you pick an organization and stay there for a long period of time and try to use it to cultivate your IT career, or you job hop, right? For the reasons that we've laid out. Well, there's secret option C. Secret option C. And it kind of aligns with what's kind of your career trajectory there, Eric. And that is, you job hop until you find your forever home, right? In terms of uh, profession. And I have seen that play out. And, um, you know, I. I've seen a number of people do that, and it has worked out well. And I guess in my own career, maybe this is kind of where I've fallen, because I have had long periods of time at two, three different companies now, depending on whether you include an acquisition or not, in that equation. But I did job hop a little bit in between them, but I have been at really two employers for a good chunk of my career. So I guess I kind of fall into this secret option C um, part here. And to me, I think for the tech industry, in my opinion, this I have to give you credit. You were the one that suggested we add this to the discussion today, Eric. So I have to give you credit for this one. But I think this would probably be my recommendation for folks that are trying to figure out what they want to do with their career. Right? I think you need to try a few things out, try a few different positions out to figure out what you like doing, to find a culture fit for you. And once you find it, hunker down and just, do the job until it doesn't feel right anymore. And I think in my experience, there's been a couple of times where I've been in a job and all of a sudden one day it's like, yeah, this isn't working for me anymore as a,
Mhm.
professionally for whatever reason. That has happened a couple of times throughout my 24 years in this industry. And so, um, I think that's another piece of advice I would have for sysadmins. And it's a little different right now because yes, it's a rough job market right now. So I would certainly urge on the side of caution, but don't ignore that gut feeling of, hey, it's not really working out where I'm at. Don't ignore it. Start making some steps to try and improve your situation, because you don't want to be someplace where you're not happy for a long period of time, right? That's no fun for anyone. So, but yeah,
Right.
I definitely think secret option C is I think what would work best for most people. I don't know if you have anything
And,
you want to add to that, Eric.
well, a lot of advice, like, and some of it is, I don't know. Um, I've seen a lot of things going on in social media, and I never know who is just getting the clicks and who is showing me the status of the world as it is today.
Right.
You know what I mean? I I've seen a number of things. Well, I just quit my job today. Don't really know where I'm going or what I'm going to do. I
Oh,
just quit, and I'm like, what are you doing?
I see
I
those
mean,
posts too.
I'm having like the
Yes.
secondhand stress. Like, and you gotta understand now, I've finally at a place in my life where I could go a while without a paycheck and not starve to death. That's great, I know that I'm not my story is unique. I don't think there's very many people like that, and they're like, "I have no job, I have no idea what I'm doing." Like, have you seen the job market
I
lately?
was
Have you
gonna
find out
say, yeah.
something like and like, "Oh, well, but look at all the postings on, like, LinkedIn," and I think somebody kinda did some, investigative stuff, and like 90% of those are fake. Like, who's the last person you know that got a job through LinkedIn? You know what I mean? Those are not real jobs. And people will go in and they'll do all this stuff and then they won't get the job and they'll get some, yeah, thanks for applying, da, 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 and they'll keep reposting the same jobs and nobody's taking them. And you find
Yep.
out, well, it's because the candidates they actually want or the investors actually want, like, look at all these job postings we have. We're totally growing. Isn't it great? And like, they're not growing anything. They're just putting advertisements out there for jobs they have no intention of filling, but they will
Yeah.
put you through the hoops, to keep those appearances up, and you'll be like, "Oh," you get so
Yep.
excited, "Oh, I got this," and no, the don't have a job offer in hand before you put your resignation letter in.
Yep. For sure.
I
For
don't
sure.
know what it oh, the secondhand stress I'm having for people is killing me. How do you do that?
Yep.
Uh,
Same.
and
Every time I see
and
that, I panic. I panic for
I
them.
right? Like, what have you done? And and I don't again, don't know really. I have seen a lot. We've kind of got this good thing we've done where we looked at previous generations who never did any self-reflection. They didn't do a lot of soul searching. They certainly didn't do therapy. They didn't talk about it, and all the horrible things that wound up building up for them. So now we've got a place where, like, yeah, we do talk about our mental health issues and we do the therapies and we
Yep.
do the things, but we've also gotten to a place where we have decided that discomfort is evil and we should never, ever, ever we should never be uncomfortable. And if they did, well, now the environment is toxic. And okay, all right, listen, folks, life is hard. It's not fair. It's never going to be. And you're going to have to sit with discomfort sometimes. So if you go in and you're having a bad month at your job, doesn't necessarily mean it's just life.
Yes.
Okay.
True.
Because I have before, and I know, like, we did our own episode on the mental health stuff, and I really wanted contact and reach people and hey, take it seriously and look at it and everything, and yeah, yes, but also
Yeah.
all you life is still going to be hard.
Yeah.
And a job is a place where they give you money in exchange for stuff you may not necessarily want to do. And if they're not asking you to like sacrifice children, then maybe just kind of set some boundaries on just what you won't put up with and make sure they're reasonable. And it's like,
Right.
because I'm talking to people like we've had to fire stacks of people lately, and they're upset. They want special dispensation because their boss expects them to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, that's it? That's the whole thing? Like, yeah, that's what they're upset about. They have to come in
Oh
at
boy.
8. I'm like,
Wow.
no, guys, this is not the thing. This is a toxic environment and it's a hostile workplace. It's really not. If that's what your complaint is, you have to be there at 8 o'clock. That's not what a hostile workplace is. Okay.
No.
This is, you're sitting there, you're minding your own business, and your coworker comes up and grabs you on the butt and hey, and gets all that's toxic. That's not
Right.
okay.
Yep.
Right? Being asked to show up at 8 o'clock, not toxic. Not toxic.
Man, I've been
Now,
hearing that.
unless it's like, I mean, yeah, you know what I mean.
I've been hearing that a lot lately, actually. I I start my workday at 6 a.m. because the rest of my team is on the other side of the ocean,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so but
yeah, and
I'm used to it. I've been doing it for years, and I do. Would I rather sleep until 7:30? Hell yeah, but that's not
but
the
what
way it
happens
is.
if you do that? Then you add 8 to that, and then that's or 9, and that's when you get off. So, like,
Yep,
all right, I mean, a lot of us come in earlier because we get off earlier, but then if you wanna
yep,
and maybe negotiate with your boss, like, okay, your start time is 9, but your off time is 6.
yep.
And, like, that sometimes that can happen, but, like, "Well, I just can't deal with this job. It's just so unreasonable to expect me to be here at the same time every day." It's like, what's unreasonable about that?
Uh, yeah,
I mean, like, just so I wanna encourage people, you can find a place that makes you happy but understand that there's gonna be limits on that. It's not well, yeah, we all want like, the job I was telling you that I really thought I was gonna retire at, is like, in a lot of ways, like, I got paid to go hang out with my buddies and play with toys that I liked all day.
right.
It's really you know what I mean? Because I really enjoyed everybody that I worked with, and it was all tech stuff and all nerd stuff, but I still had to work, I still had to produce, I still had to it was a job,
Yep,
and there were still times, like, I really need a vacation because this is just burying
yep,
me right now. All of those things happened, but it was still a great job and still a great environment, and, like, it's discomfort is part of life, folks. Just
yeah,
I don't wanna say just deal with it, but in kind of a way that is what I'm saying. Just deal with it,
yeah. You do have
Set
to
have boundaries, but they gotta be reasonable boundaries.
They do. Yeah, and you do have to deal with it at a certain degree, and sometimes it's temporary. So, an
Mhm.
example that I can give of that, it was in my MSP days. I was happy where I was at, and the MSP took on a customer that had the same support burden as the rest of our customers combined. Massive,
Yep, that happens.
massive support burden. And you can
That
imagine
happens.
what that did to workload, morale for a period of time, right?
Yes.
I mean, it was rough for a while, but we knew that, right? We knew that, okay, this is going to suck and we're going to have to onboard some new help. It's going to be a whole thing. It's going to be rough for a while. But you know what? We got through it and things were fine again after that. And sometimes it's temporary pain. So, um, I think one thing I want to wrap up with here, Eric, is kind of provide a little bit of advice for sysadmins at various stages, right? Again, everybody's different. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. But the way I look at things, again, speaking in generalities, I think if I was to go back and do things again, early in my career, I think I would have job hopped a little bit more intentionally. Um, Mainly to build breadth because before I hit my MSP job, I was a couple of different small places, 2 different small places. It'd have been more advantageous for me to have a wider breadth of knowledge, at that stage in my career, and I could have done that by hopping to a couple of different places early in my career. I would say that once you hit mid-career, right, now you're probably starting a family, you have more responsibilities. Now that long term, staying with the same organization option probably seems to make a little bit more sense. And I think that's where probably most people end up. But that said, as you continue to move on throughout your career, right? If you get in a bad situation, make the switch. If you're not getting paid what your market rate is, you might want to consider making the switch. And then I would say, to kind of wrap up, and um, I'm by no means at the end of my career, right? I'm not retiring anytime soon. Um, but I have talked with guys that are at that retirement stage. I've had conversations with a number of folks that are kind of around here, and I think um, the advice that I've heard people give, from that stage of IT careers, is to mainly leverage your depth and your network, right? Don't let anyone, a business or an individual, make you feel guilty for prioritizing your quality of life over a job, right? Um, and yeah, I guess that's what I would leave people with. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Eric, before we wrap up.
Just I just want to stack on with it, do that within the boundaries of it's a job and it's going to be
Yes. Yep.
inconvenient and uncomfortable, and definitely set boundaries. Just make sure they're rational and reasonable, and don't have people going, yeah, and I want to kind of connect that to the one piece of advice I would have given myself when I was younger is, I am, even at my age, kind of idealistic, and, uh, trying to fight for something I'd seen, like some person was being nice to a kid, and they're like, "Well, why are you doing it? Kids shouldn't trust people." And like, then make a world where they can trust people. That is on you. That is on every single person to make that world better. And yeah, bumper sticker me. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
So idealistic me getting upset over things when I was wronged and I had employers come to me. Never let a bad employer, a bad boss, a bad coworker change the person that you are. If
Yes.
they're
For
doing
sure.
something wrong, as long as they're the one doing something wrong, they are the villain. And you know what? Maybe that villain will never come to justice. Just you're gonna have to suck it up because the life isn't fair, world isn't
Yeah.
fair. Maybe they're never gonna get theirs. But if you want to make sure they don't win, you don't let them change who you are. So don't let them turn you into some sort of retaliatory, destructive, bitter, hateful, whatever. That's how you let them win. You want to make them lose, just be like, yeah, that guy's a jerk. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my language PG here. This is an awful human being, and I could really get him. I could really burn him. Don't, because what usually happens is you wind up getting burned. People don't want to hear, well, he did that, so I did this. They don't want to hear that first part. It's like, well, but you did this, and we know that, and we can prove it. And now you're in trouble, and you'll have to carry that, and that could follow you in ways you don't. Just basically don't let anyone change the person that you are. If somebody's being nasty to you, then plot your exit strategy and just get out. And
Yeah.
you know what? Best thing you can do for revenge is to forget those people, you know? And
Yep.
then one other thing, because we are on this topic and you have kind of brought up retirement, age discrimination is a thing and it's illegal, but it's so easy to commit and not get caught.
Yep.
Once you hit about 40 in IT, you better not be trying to play the job hop game, because you're going to hop yourself right into an unemployment line and never ever working in your career again. It can happen. So be really mindful of that.
Yeah. And I would say, to kind of help combat that, and it's just general good practice as well too, don't ever stop learning. Because I have seen guys that have allowed their skills get so specialized to the organization
Hmm.
they're with that it's almost
Yep.
impossible for them to go get hired somewhere else because they have
Yep.
such a niche skill set, right?
Yep.
Um, so
Your copper line phone guys. I know a
yep.
lot of them. I don't know what they did, because they're like, I'm not going to learn that IP stuff. I'm not going to learn that voice over IP. I don't need to know that. That's not useful. And oh, oh,
Oh
oh,
boy.
oh.
Oh boy. I wonder where they're at now.
I do
I,
too. Fortunately, most of them were in their 50s, and I haven't, like
that's all right.
10 years or so since I've heard them, so they probably are okay, but
Yeah, hopefully. So,
yeah, don't do that.
yeah, exactly. Always be learning, right? Always be learning something. So, anyway, with that, Eric, I want to say thanks for spending some time and sharing some of your career stories and history and your advice with us. It's good talking to you as always, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Definitely. And those of you watching, hope you enjoyed today's episode and hopefully you found some value in it. Again, if you have any questions, you can always leave us a comment. If, you have feedback, leave us a comment as well too. I always love to hear from our community, and I love to share comments from our community with the show as well too. So again, you can leave comments on the YouTube episodes of the show, the Spotify episodes of the show, or leave a post on the GitHub discussion boards, link to that in the show notes, or you can just email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com as well, too. With that, we'll let you get back to the rest of your week. Hope you have a good week, and we will see you again next week for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Have a good one.